Proceeding Biology, and in today's video we will be covering the chapter 2 classification as a crash course. So the crash course topic in which we cover in the entire syllabus in just a quick view and also give a look at the syllabus first. So in your syllabus, there are 2 pointers of 2.1 and 2.2, that is the concept and use of classification system and the features of organism. We have covered almost all the pointers of 2.1 and the 2.2 also. The last thing that we discussed in the video was understand the viruses can only replicate in the living cells, and all of these pointers have been covered, including the 5 kingdoms of animal, plantae, fungi, prokaryote, protoctista, what is a species as an organism, how does a species reproduce, and what is the binomial system, the dichotomous case, and all of which they are included in the classification syllabus of 2.1 and 2.2 of IGSE Olevels Biology. Well, in today's video, we will be beginning with the very basic of 2.1 that have been asked in your syllabus for the O levels. That is the concept of classification. Now, what is meant by the classification? Classification means that the group of the organisms are being divided into the multiple sections of either vertebrates or invertebrates, and the further groups of vertebrates and then the invertebrates. Basically, in scientific word, the classification is termed as the taxonomy, which is a branch of science or the biology in which the organisms are being classified. Let's talk about what is meant by the term species. So species are the group of organisms that reproduce to produce fertile offspring. Now what is meant by the fertile and the offspring? Offspring are the daughter cells that are produced after the mitosis or the meiosis, actually by the meiosis. And the fertile mean that they are able to multiply themselves to produce further offspring. So species are basically a group of organisms that reproduce to produce fertile offspring. It is a small natural group of the organisms, and the species can be of many kinds. Okay, so the identical anatomy and physiological behavior. The species among one another, what is the relation of one species with another species? They are related, that they would be have a similar anatomical creatures and the physiological behavior. That anatomical means around the body, the features that we have on our external body or in the external appearance. The physiological behavior, it means that on the basis of the environmental changes, how does a specific species react. So on the terms of anatomy or the anatomy, we can see the exoskeleton and the endoskeleton. Endoskeleton is the skeleton that is basically inside the body, whereas exoskeleton is outside the body. The term exo mean outside and the term endo mean inside. So the outer surface skeleton of the body is called exoskeleton, and the inner surface, the skeleton, is known as the endoskeleton. Now, in the physiological behavior, one of the very few kind of a behavior is for example, the phenomena of breathing. Now, how does a species breathe? A species can be breathing by lungs, or it can breathe by gills, or it can also breathe by book lungs or any other, or it can also breathe by the skin. So these are few of the examples of the phenomena of breathing, but it depends upon species to species on how it basically breathe inside the oxygen. This is the basic concept of species and how it is similar anatomically and physiologically. Let's have a look at the basic classification, that is the vertebrates. What is meant by the term vertebrates? So vertebrates are those organisms that has a vertebral column, that is they have a backbone and can survive on their own basically. So it's a very easy trick to learn the further groups of the vertebrate, that is the bee farm. I have discussed in the short video and the previous videos also that the B farm stands for B is for birds, F is for fishes, A is for amphibians, R is for reptile, and M is for mammals. All of these are the further group of the vertebrates. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of the vertebrates: birds, fishes, amphibians, reptiles, and the mammal. We human beings comes in the group of the mammals, and the rest of them are divided into having the specific characteristics. The amphibians live in the sea and also on the land. Reptiles are specifically living on the land. Fishes are seawater or the marine animals, whereas birds are naturally in the environment. These are the subgroups of the vertebrates. Let's look at them in detail. Alright, so how the 5 kingdom classification took place. The 5 kingdom classification basically took place on the basis of their cellularity and their mode of nutrition. So five kingdom classification means that the classification is internally five. That is the worldly meaning of the five kingdom classification. It is animal, it has animalia, it has plantae, it has fungus, it has prokaryota, it has protoctista. So these are the five further groups of the five kingdom classification. Let's look at its modes of nutrition and its survival method. So animals are multicellular, plants are also multicellular. Fungi can be multicellular or it can be unicellular. When it comes to a unicellular, very common example is a yeast that is used for the baking purposes very commonly. Then we have a prokaryota. In prokaryota, majorly the bacteria are involved. So bacteria are a single cell organelle, thus it is known as a unicellular. Uni means one, multi means that it has many cells, and Protoctista in itself has a unicellular. So do remember that only the animal and plantae are the multicellular organism. Other than that, mostly are unicellular, but fungi can be multicellular and it can be unicellular on the basis of what kind of a fungi it is. Okay, we have already discussed that prokaryota includes the bacteria, whereas protoctus includes a protozoa. A very common protozoa is a plasmodium that is a causative agent for the malaria. Malaria is a very common disease. We have often heard about it in a very regular daily life. So these are the five kingdom classification. You need to learn about this multicellularity and unicellularity, which have been asked in your syllabus. Let's talk about the plantae first in the five kingdom classification. As we have already discussed, the kingdom plantae is multicellular. That is, means that it has multiple cells. It is a eukaryote. It is an autotroph. By autotroph, it means the organisms that are not dependent upon any other species. They are independent for their food, for their life survivals, and they are able to make their own food. The opposite of autotrophs are the heterotrophs. There are animals are the kingdom animal include the heterotroph organisms that depends upon other things or other species for their food. Well, they are the autotroph plant make their own food. Thus, their terms as the autotroph. Uh, they are multicellular and they include a very important organelle that is the chloroplast, due to which they are termed as the autotrophs, since the chloroplasts have a tendency to absorb the light energy from the sun and convert it into the chemical energy that in turn forms up their food. So chloroplast is a very important organelle that a plant has. Let's talk about some examples of the plantae that includes the rose bush and the mango tree. You have mostly seen all of them in your daily life routine. Next, let's discuss about the kingdom prokaryota. The kingdom prokaryota is a unicellular. Like I've told you, only the kingdom plantae and the animalia are the multicellular. All of them, the rest of them is unicellular. Prokaryota mainly includes the bacteria in itself, in its group. They have no nucleus and the cell wall is made of the peptide glycan. So the peptidoglycan is a peptidoglycan. So it is a material that is present in the cell wall of the bacteria. The bacteria cell wall is not similar to the cell wall of a plantae or a cell wall of animalia. So it consists of a loop of a DNA inside itself, like in this structure, and it is used for the extracellular digestion. The very common example of prokaryota is the E. coli. For the discussion, next we have is the fungus. Fungi can be unicellular and it can be multicellular. It can consist of one cell, it can consist of a multiple cell. So they do not consist of a chloroplast. Only plantae. In plantae, we have the chloroplast, due to which they are termed as the autotrophic in nature. Now, the fungi are responsible for the release of the enzymes for the extracellular digestion. The enzymes that are used in the extracellular digestion are basically released by the kingdom fungi or the organisms that are included in the fungi. They do have a proper nucleus, that's they are known as the eukaryotic. Eukaryotic are those organisms that consist of the membrane-bound organelle or the one that have the proper nucleus or the membrane-bounded organelle. So these are the two characteristics due to which an organism can be termed either they are eukaryotic or they are prokaryotic. They consist of a cell wall that is made up of a chitin. Similarly, we have learned that if the cell wall of a prokaryota is turned up with a peptidoglycan, the cell wall of a fungi is known as the chitin. It is made up of the chitin basically. It is not made up of the cellulose. Most of the cell wall are made up of the material that is known as the cell wall. So it is not made up of a cell wall. It is made up of a chitin. Next, in your pointer of 2.1, we have been asked to discuss the dichotomous keys. Now, what is the dichotomous key? Dichotomous key means, for example, a flow chart that is furtherly divided into other things. So, let's say this. This is the flow chart. The dichotomous means it will consist of the two branches, one and the two. Primarily, it will consist of the two branches. You'll follow the key and make the suitable choices. For example, in this one and in this two, you choose the term two. Once you choose the two term, it will further be divided into two more. You have to choose the another suitable choice and you have to follow the one key. Similarly, if you have choose this one, this is the 4 and this is the 3. You make the choice and make the 4 as your choice, then it is furtherly again divided into two of them. So, the dichotomous key means there are two branches, it follows the key and you make the suitable choices. When the suitable choices are made, the first question splits into two subheadings. The first question splits into two subheadings. Then you follow the key and make a choice. Then it furtherly follows the two. So this is what you meant by the dichotomous key. Next, particularly the phylum that have been asked to discuss in your syllabus is the phylum Arthropoda. What is the phylum Arthropoda? So phylum Arthropoda means the one with the jointed legs. Arthropoda, arthro and the poda. It means the jointed legs. These jointed legs organism, there is the arthropodan organism, consists of the three key features. It has a tough skeleton, exoskeleton. Exoskeleton means the outer surface skeleton of our body. So it have an outer surface, a rough, so that means it is a rigid and a rough structure. Then it have a jointed appendages. Since it have a jointed legs, it means it has a jointed appendages. By the appendages, it means the legs or the wings. The segmented body. The term segmented body tells us that the body of an arthropoda is divided into sections. Thus, it is termed as the segmented. We will say that these are three segments in this organism. That means that it is divided into three segments of the body. This is the number one, this is the number two, and this is the number three. Thus, there are three key features: the tough skeleton, the jointed appendages, and the segmented body. Next, we have the classification hierarchy. How do we classify an organism? So, firstly, the domain is covered, then it is converted into a kingdom, then to a phylum, then to a class, then to an order, then to a family, and then to a genus, and then to a species. It all begins with a species. Either you go this way or you go that way. This is the classification hierarchy. It means that how an organisms are basically turned into one another in order to form a species. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and the species. You have to learn this chart. You have particularly been asked in your IGSE Olevels Biology syllabus about the classification hierarchy. Then since we have discussed about the species in detail, now we need to know how the genus and species are linked together. So genus is a group of the organisms that are bigger in number and species are basically smaller in number. We have already learned that smaller, it is a small group of the organisms that are able to breed and produce fertile offspring. Alright, so the organisms in the genus are very less alike. They are not like together as a one species, whereas in species the organisms are very similar to one another. So let's for example say if an organism has the same genus, it would have a different species. If an organism has the same species, it would be considered to have a different genus. So this is the difference between the genus and the species. Next we have is the binomial nomenclature. So in nomenclature, we need to learn how the scientists made it easier for us to learn the specific names of the species and how are they termed together. Binomenclature consists of a genus and the species name. First the genus and then the species name. The genus name, there are certain rules to be followed in the nomenclature that includes the genus name should be in capital letters and the species name should be in small letters. Then we have the genus name to be written first and then the species name to be written as second. So, in binomial, we have been given a definition that says in which two terms are used to denote a species of a living organism. Let's say this is a scientific name. The half name would be a genus, the first half name would be a genus, and the last half name would be a species. For example, let's have a look at the example that says tiger. The scientific name for a tiger is the Panthera tigris, which includes the name of a genus, that is the Panthera, and the name of a species, that is the tigris. So the common name of Panthera tigris is the tiger. since we have discussed about the phylum Arthropoda earlier, so the characteristics of phylum Arthropoda includes that it has a head, it has a thorax, and the abdomen. Any characteristic that includes the insects or the arthropoda with the jointed legs, it means that a body would have a part of a head, the middle region that is the thorax, and the under region that is the abdomen. So the head parts contains the mouth part, the thoraxal is the middle part or the middle region of the body, and the abdomen part majorly consists of the digestive systems or the reproductive systems. So these are the main characteristics of phylum Arthropoda. Next, we need to learn is how the phylum Arthropoda are related to the insects, or they are said to be relatable for one another, or the relatives of one another. We say so because the characteristic of arthropods and the characteristic of insects are very similar to one another. The body of an arthropod consists of three major features, that is the head, the thorax, and the abdomen, and the body of an insect also consists of a head, the thorax, and the abdomen. Both of them have the jointed legs, and thus they are said to be subgroup. Thus the insects are said to be subgroups of the arthropods, and they are the largest group of the arthropods, subgroup of the arthropods. So the three main characteristics that defines the arthropoda is the jointed appendages, segmented body, and external skeleton. Three of these main features are being scientists are able to find in the insects. Thus they are said to be the relatives of one another. This is how the arthropods and insects are relatives. Since we have talked about the arthropoda, we have talked about the insects being relatives of arthropoda, let's talk about the insects in detail. The body of insects are basically fused. These are segments of fuse, that means they are mostly termed as the cephalothorax. Now, what is meant by the term cephalothorax? Cephalothorax means that the body has a head, thorax, and the abdomen, but the head and the thorax are basically fused together and formed as a one structure, and then it has the abdomen as a separate. That means the head, thorax, and the abdomen. So the head, thorax are fused together and as abdomen as a separate. So this is the body of insects mostly. Alright, so it has a segmented fused body. They have the compound eyes for the mosaic vision. Mosaic vision means a clear vision under the lesser light. Then we have the head part, the thorax, and the abdomen. Let's talk about the head part, that includes the mouth parts and some of the eyes part. Then we have the thorax, that includes the legs and the wings, and then we have the abdomen, that includes the reproductive systems or the structures and the digestive structures. Alright, so the head consists of a mosaic eye, compound eyes for a mosaic vision. They have a mouth for sucking, lapping, or for other purposes, or for eating purposes. Alright, and the third part is that they consist of a pair of the appendages along with their jaws. And the thoracic part, which is the middle region of the body, have the three pairs of the leg and the wings. Depending upon the kind of insect, there can be legs and there can be wings. The abdomen part consists of a reproductive structures either, or they have the digestive structures either. So these are the two structures that are found very easily in the abdomen of an insect, either the reproductive or the digestive. Thus the body of an insect, similar to the arthropoda, have the head, have the thorax, and have the abdomen. In the head part, it consists of a mouth part and the compound eyes. In the thoraxal part, it will consist of a leg or the wings. And the abdomen part, either it will consist of a reproductive or the digestive system or the digestive structures. Next was asked about the plants in your IGSC biology syllabus O-levels. And the plant, we need to learn this. I've made this easier for you by making a chart that says the plant can be divided into two categories. That means either a flowering plant or a non-flowering plant. In non-flowering plant, either we have spore-bearing plants or either they have seeds, that are the naked seeds. If they are spore-bearing plant, there must be no roots or there would be a roots. The one with the roots are the common example is these ferns, and the one with no roots, the common example is the moss. So moss and ferns are the example of the non-flowering plants. The one with the naked seeds are termed as the gymnosperms. Well, the flowering plants are often known as the angiosperm, which are the opposite of the gymnosperm, that are flowerless. The flowering plants consist of a monocot or the dicot. By mono, it means one, and by di, it means two. So the monocot and the dicot, that means it is made up of one seed leaf, it is made up of the two seed leaf. This is all you need to learn about the section of a plant in your 2.2. Alright, so these are some of the very general characteristics of the phylum Arthropoda, which just you need to give it a look. That is, the phylum Arthropoda, I've already told that they have the jointed legs. They are the largest phylum, as includes 900,000 species in itself. They have the compound eyes for the mosaic vision that are included in the head part. The examples are spider, millipedes, centipedes, and the insects. We have already discussed this entire sheet in the previous sheets. Now let's talk about the classification of arthropods. Arthropods have 4 classification, and we need to learn it by the term that says cam-I. From C we have crustaceans, from A we have myriapoda, from M we have myriapoda, from A we have arachnids, and from I we have insects. So this is the classification of arthropod. In crustaceans we have the hard shell, that means the outer surface is a rough and a rigid structure. It consists of 4 pair of the jointed legs. What is the difference between all the subgroups of the arthropoda is the pair of the jointed legs or the number of legs or the wings. The crustaceans include 4 pairs of the jointed legs, and the examples include prawns, crab, etc. In myriapoda we have many legs. The myria means many. So myriapodia has many legs. It at least it will have one leg, although it has so many legs, but the least number of the legs is the 1 pair of the legs. It has a segmented body, and the examples include millipedes and the centipedes. The third we have is the insects. The insects are 3 pairs of the organism. They have 6 pair of the legs, and they have the 4 wings. The number of wings in the insects is the 4. The examples include butterfly, grasshopper. These are very common examples that you have often heard. From A now we have arachnids. So arachnids include spiders and the scorpions. Within the name of the arachnids are basically termed as those organisms that are like the spiders and the scorpions that have a body that in which the head and the thorax are fused together to form a cephalothoraxal body. So these are basically cephalothoraxal organisms. They have the 4 pairs of the legs. So the number of legs in the arachnids are 4. In insects are 6. In crustaceans are 4. And in myriapodia there are many. So these are the 4 groups of the organism which can be learned by a very easy trick. Cam-I, crustaceans, arachnids, myriapoda, and the insect. The 4 subgroups of the arthropoda, in which the insects is the largest group, and then the largest in the number of legs is the myriapoda. Do remember this: the largest in the number of legs is the myriapoda, but largest in the number of species is the insects. Then we have crustaceans, and then we have arachnids. So often the question of the MCQs are being asked that says that which of the subgroup have the arthropod are the cephalothoraxal body. The cephalothoraxal body only includes the arachnids. The subgroup of the arthropod that has cephalothoraxal body are the arachnids. The last topic that we have for the discussion is the virus. This was the last 2.2 topic that to discuss about the key features of the virus. The size of a virus is a very common MCQ. Well, the size of a virus is very smaller than the bacteria. It is almost 100 times smaller than the bacteria. The viruses are considered to be on the borderline of living and non-living organism. Why so? Because they have a no typical cell structure. Now, what is meant by a no typical cell structure? It means that they do not have a cytoplasm, they neither have a cell membrane, they neither have any organelle. When they don't have a cytoplasm, they don't have a cell membrane, even they don't have any organelle, then why do we study the virus? We do study the virus because of its DNA and the RNA replicable quality. So it consists of an outer surface that is a coat that protects the virus, that is termed as the protein coat, which is a capsid, and capsid is made up of the capsomers. Capsomers are the small units of the protein that joins together to form a protein coat, that is the capsid. It neither have a reproductive structure, even the virus. So virus have a genetic material, that is the DNA and the RNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid and the RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. Both of them are the genetic material, and viruses are only present in the living cell. One of the other characteristics due to which we study virus is that because they are only present in the living cell. No matter which living cell, they either be present in animal cell, plant cell, or any other organism. They just need a host for their survival of life. So this is a overall view of the chapter. In the